This is Anglia.
Afghanistan for a day longer than is necessary.
Also on the programme, an armed siege on a... Hello from Jonathan and from me, welcome to the programme.
First, they took to the streets in their hundreds to mark their return from Afghanistan.
But even as the Royal Anglians began a week of homecoming parades across our region, the Prime Minister was spelling out his hopes of ending British involvement in the conflict as soon as possible.
Thousands turned out to salute the 1st Battalion as they marched through Huntingdon earlier today. And right now, they're parading through Cambridge, which is where we can join our reporter Emma Baker. Emma.
Yes, as you say, Jonathan, this is one of 5 parades going on around the region this week. As you can see behind me, about to walk past me, the 1st Battalion of the Royal Anglian Regiment, a chance for the soldiers there to celebrate their achievements and also an opportunity for the general public to show their support. But of course, every single one of the soldiers who's about to walk past me today will be only too aware about the growing unrest surrounding the conflict in Afghanistan. Indeed, there are some reports there will be some anti-war protesters making their voices heard here this evening. The death toll at the moment, as it stands, the number of British soldiers who have lost their lives in Afghanistan stands at 295. Of those, that is 5 members of the 1st Battalion of the Royal Anglian Regiment who lost their lives in the last tour of duty. And as that death toll rises, there are an increasing number of people who are asking how much longer do our troops have to be out in Afghanistan. For many of these soldiers, it was a highlight of their military careers. For friends, families and supporters, today's homecoming parade in Huntingdon was a moment of immense pride. This is the first homecoming parade in Huntingdon since 1955. For members of the 1st Battalion of the Royal Anglian Regiment, it is a rare chance to celebrate their achievements. For the people here, it's an opportunity to show their support for their local soldiers. Local soldiers like 23-year-old William Wells.
It was awesome, the best feeling I've ever had. I was just so happy to be back.
For William's mum, there was only one word to sum up her emotions.
Joy. Joy that he's come home safe.
The 1st Battalion, the Royal Anglians, have just returned from a 3rd tour of duty in Afghanistan, a tour in which 5 of its soldiers were killed. Today's events in Huntingdon and Cambridge mark the start of a week of parades. On Wednesday, Ely plays host to a march and service in the cathedral. On Thursday, 200 troops will march through Southend. And on Friday, 100 soldiers are in Norwich. No! The parades come as the war in Afghanistan is being put under increasing scrutiny. Last week, David Cameron made his first visit to the country since becoming Prime Minister.
The Afghan people do not want foreign forces on their soil any longer than necessary, and the British people are rightly impatient for progress. Our forces will not remain in Afghanistan a day longer than is necessary, and I want to bring them home the moment it is safe to do so.
Despite the debates surrounding the conflict, those marching in Huntingdon today were quick to distance themselves from the politics.
We are servants of the government, and we're sent to go and do the job which they asked us to do. There is a very, very real job to be done in Afghanistan. I think if you spoke to every member of my battalion who served there, they would be able to tell you about the sort of, the green shoots of hope which they've been able to see as a result of their progress and their hard work out in Afghanistan.
People in Huntingdon may not have seen eye to eye with the politicians, but they were fully behind the soldiers.
We should be very proud of them, and they do it great. The soldiers do it right, the politicians do it wrong.
They're doing a good job, they're doing it for us. It makes me very emotional. Yes, I'm very proud of them.
Can't walk out halfway through and leave the place, in a mess. So they've got to carry on, haven't they? But let's hope it ends soon, very soon, for the sake of all of these boys.
The debate about Afghanistan rumbles on. Many of these soldiers will want to concentrate solely on the job in hand. It's a job that could prove tougher than ever over the next few months.
Well, back to Emma, and as you can see, the homecoming parade is quite a spectacle behind you there. Do you think we're likely to see an end to these in the near future?
Well, I have to say, Becky, I think the short answer to that is no. While David Cameron today did make clear that he didn't want the troops to be out there for any longer than is necessary, he also said he was determined that the British troops should not, as he put it, cut and run. Now, he said the British troops will stay out in Afghanistan for as long as is needed. How long that is, of course, is anyone's guess. But, of course, talking to people in Huntingdon today and here in Cambridge, there are many people who would say that should be sooner rather than later.
Indeed. Emma Baker, thank you very much for that. Right, moving on next tonight, the armed siege just yards from a junior school in Essex.
The drama unfolded on a housing estate in Braintree. Armed police spent much of today surrounding a flat on Lancaster Way as they tried to negotiate with a man who was locked inside.
Well, the siege ended just after 2:30 this afternoon. Our reporter Tom Barton's there for us now. Tom, it's a pretty alarming day this has been for the neighbours and parents alike.
Yes, Jonathan, dramatic scenes here today. For almost 4.5 hours, police armed with automatic weapons surrounded the flats behind me, while negotiators tried to talk down a man holed up inside. The siege eventually ended when police, with riot shields and tasers, stormed the flat, arresting the man who, it turned out, was armed with a samurai sword. All of this just yards from a junior school with pupils inside. Every road in and out of Lancaster Way in Braintree was cordoned off, all access to the street guarded by police. Near the scene, armed officers backed up negotiators as reports circled of a man barricaded in his flat, wielding a sword. The flat overlooks a primary school playing field. Parents arriving to collect their children were among those kept behind the cordon.
There was obviously someone armed right by a children's school, so it's quite scary really, for the safety of all the children.
And you've got kids in the school?
Yeah, I've got one in the infant school, yeah.
So it must be a real worry for you.
Yes, yeah, I just want to go and get my 5-year-old out really and get him home, and hopefully it will be resolved very quickly.
Just to give you a sense of the geography here, that flat is just a few yards from a junior school behind that fence. The head teacher of that school has told me today that the pupils were kept inside and the blinds and curtains were kept shut. Shortly after 2:30, police removed the door from the block of flats. Officers in protective gear went in, armed with tasers. They arrested a man on suspicion of a fray and recovered a samurai sword from the scene.
A 43-year-old man from Braintree is currently in custody. I would like to thank the local community for their patience in allowing the situation to be resolved.
As police lifted the cordon, families who'd been kept apart by the siege were reunited. Police believe this afternoon's events were triggered by a domestic incident which got out of control.
No, I never knew him. I spoke to him once and that was it.
Loads of policemen, 15 cars, weren't there? Big truck with all the, like America's SWAT team it was.
A man is in police custody tonight. Officers are satisfied that they brought this potentially dangerous incident to a close with no injuries. Tom Barton, Anglia News, Braintree.
Yes, a worrying day in Braintree there. Elsewhere, a man has been arrested on suspicion of arson after a fire in a Cambridge court building this afternoon. Police evacuated the Cambridge County Court and closed East Road. That was all the way up to the train station, where a controlled explosion was carried out later in the afternoon. A 62-year-old man from Waterbeach has been arrested and is now being questioned at Parkside Station.